Well, Kevin Matthews is an assistant professor of history at George Mason University. He's also a former journalist who's reported on British and Irish issues and politics. Kevin, thanks for joining us. I want to first ask you, what do you make of Boris Johnson's opening remarks, if you will, before the House of Commons, how he's positioning himself, particularly on Brexit?
Well, if you didn't know any better, you would think that he's going to call a snap general election in the autumn, even though he's sworn he's not going to do so. He was in Manchester yesterday promising 3.6 billion pounds. Thank God it's not trillion. Billion pounds, that's roughly 4.4 billion US dollars to help depressed areas throughout the United Kingdom. That's on top of his other pledges to add more police to the streets and a massive tax cut that will help the wealthy, who are mainly his supporters in the Conservative Party. The problem with that is he's also declaring that he will crash out of the EU in October if he doesn't get the deal that he wants. And the estimates are that if that happens, that will plunge the UK into a recession, and that could take public finances down by roughly 30 billion pounds a year. That's 37 billion US dollars. So where he's going to get the money for all these pledges, anybody knows.
You're suggesting these pledges sound like campaign pledges, but he's working with a very slim majority in Parliament, even if he has these fresh elections in the autumn. How does he make such a drastic move over something like Brexit within less than 100 days from now?
Well, that's the other conundrum he's got to face, because he's got less than 100 days, like you said. He's already laid down conditions with the EU before he'll even negotiate. It seems that he might be trying to set up the EU to take the blame for crashing out and try to convince the British people that if only the EU had come to the table to negotiate with him, then all would have been well. It's not his fault, and it will also get him out of those public those pledges he just made, because then he can say, I don't have the money.
Tell us a little bit about Ireland's reaction to Johnson's Brexit plan, why it matters. And I don't think he's spoken yet to the Irish leader, at least not when I last checked.
No, he hasn't. The Irish Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, has congratulated Johnson on becoming Prime Minister, but as of today, Johnson's not responded. The big problem for Johnson is what's called the Irish Backstop, which really shouldn't be an issue. It's an insurance policy that was put into the Brexit agreement by Theresa May, and all it says is that if the UK and the EU do not agree on a trade deal by the end of 2020, that the Irish border will not turn into a hard border. That is to say that there will still be a free exchange of goods and services and people across the Irish border. And that's vitally important, because the 1998 Good Friday Agreement that ended the Irish Troubles was predicated on the idea that you would have an open border between North and South. It's similar to, say, a border springing up between New York and New Jersey, or between Washington, D.C. and Maryland and Virginia, or where I'm from, between Kentucky and Ohio and Indiana, and having customs barriers there, having people have to go through border checks. It would cause a great deal of trouble, and it could potentially revive the troubles of violence itself.
We've got about 30 seconds. I have to ask you about Iran. He's inheriting this tanker crisis from Theresa May. How does he handle it?
Well, it's another problem, because he hasn't got the Navy that he needs to secure the British shipping in the Persian Gulf. There are only 77 vessels in the Royal Navy right now, and there are anywhere between 15 and 30 British flagged vessels in the Persian Gulf, 3 of which are usually going through the Strait of Hormuz at any one time, and that is the dangerous spot. He might be tempted to go into an agreement with the Americans to protect shipping. The problem with that is that means aligning the UK with the hardline policy that Donald Trump has pursued against Iran. A lot of this stems from Trump's pullout of the talks, with the agreement with the Iranians. And the British don't want to get into that boat with the Americans, not yet anyway.
Kevin Matthews, thank you so much for your insight.
Good to be here. Thank you.